Hey guys, my name is Liam Jenkins. Welcome back to Philly Sports Network. My throat is sore. I'm exhausted. We have just had 3 days of live streams, a million articles, and now 9 new Philadelphia Eagles. There'll be plenty of coverage on the way. There'll be some draft grades on the horizon. But for now, I just wanted to have some closing thoughts about the NFL draft and share them with you because there was a lot to take from this with regards to the Eagles. In many ways, they went back to their old habits, and in some, they decided to pick up some new ones or merge some problematic ideas from years past with a new foundation, and I think that's important. Now, a lot of people, the biggest complaint about this draft class was the selection of Landon Dickerson in the second round. The fact he had 2 torn ACLs, he had ankle surgery, that he maybe isn't a surefire player to come in and actually succeed straight away, or that he might not be the heir to Jason Kelce's throne. But at the end of the day, as the draft went on, what we saw was an Eagles team who wanted to put pieces of the puzzle together to start the conveyor belts moving. And when you get to the deeper end of the draft, where they had so many 6th round picks, more than they knew what to do with, you look back at those first couple rounds and all of a sudden, it does make a bit more sense. Like, yeah, okay, could they have taken a cornerback earlier? Definitely. Should they have taken Dickerson? Could they have gone back for Creed Humphrey? Potentially. But when you get to the back end and you're looking for role players and you think of the bigger picture, the Eagles could bring in a cornerback such as Garyon Conley. They could potentially just know that Derek Stingley Jr. is coming out of college and they've got 3 first-round picks to go up and get him. That's a possibility. Nickel, where Avonte Maddox is entering his contract year. They bring in a guy that can do that. Then you get to the defensive line, where not only do they bring in Williams, who I think is an extremely athletic prospect and someone that is very fun to watch, but they then bolster that with 2 more names. The last one being Patrick Johnson out of Tulane, whose pro comparison is Derek Barnett. Now, he's listed as a linebacker. He's a hybrid player. Could be a hand-in-the-dirt linebacker, but you get where I'm going with this. It's more and more depth. Taron Jackson also joined the defensive line, and he was later joined by Marlon Tuipulotu. 2 more players to the defensive line. The Eagles realise that Fletcher Cox is getting up there in age. His contract balloons next year. Javon Hargrave is the highest paid nose in the league. At defensive end, BG won't be around forever. We know Barnett is in a $10 million option year. Josh Sweat does still have some reservations, and there is no depth behind him. The Eagles brought in versatile players who can tick off numerous depth needs, and you can see what you've got there for a couple of years. It buys the coaching staff time to show, all right, let's give you some toys. Let's give you some absolute athletic specimens. Show me what you can do with them if you're Howie Roseman. Show me what you can do with these guys. Let's see you put your money where your mouth is. If you're the wide receiver whisperer, there are size concerns over Devonta Smith. Go make him shine at the next level. For a DB's coach, here is Zach McPherson out of Texas Tech, a feisty young nickel cornerback that could have some outside potential as a boundary. He's a little bit more in terms of his fluidity, but an incredible athlete. And that's where we get to the second point. The Eagles last year drafted very, very aggressively. All the players seem to have one thing in common, and that is that when it came to athletic traits and the relative athletic score, if you follow Kent Neplatt on Twitter, they were all like highly absurd numbers, like 9 ratings at a minimum. Absurd 40-yard dash times, incredible short shuttles, the agility drills through the roof. And the same way for Davion Taylor, who's probably the best example here. A very raw linebacking prospect that hasn't had to show a lot yet, hasn't had a lot of snaps behind him, but could have a huge ceiling. The Eagles are now rebuilding. Last year they weren't. Last year they were contending. That was the worst time to bring in players in the 3rd round who are fundamentally raw with high upsides. Now you want that to happen. You want those coaches to develop those young players into something. So you take a player, for instance, like Jacoby Stevens out of LSU, a safety hybrid who's been drafted as a linebacker to play that box role. He's low in the draft, but his athletic traits are off the charts. He is a faster, more hard-hitting Jalen Mills, in my opinion. Literally tests similarly to cornerback Eric Stokes. Let that sink in. The man is a defensive tackle. The Eagles aren't going for guys who are going to come in day one and start. They know that's not what they're about. But they're heading through a transition period right now where a lot of these aging veterans, you can argue Jason Kelce and Brandon Brooks are among the most prominent. Fletcher Cox directly opposite him is in that conversation. They're getting towards the end of their contracts. They're getting up there in age. They're getting expensive. The Eagles, through a very prominent opening round, gave Jalen Hurts a platform to succeed. They said, there's your number 1 receiver. There's Devonta Smith. Go make it happen. Then they bring in a center he's familiar with. That's a big win for the Eagles. Very aware there. They've decided that they're not going to go for a JC Horn or a Patrick Surtain. They were never going to go for those top edge rushes. They wanted to make offense a priority and stack the boat, load the boat on defense towards the end of the draft. And the effect that had was you've now got a pass rush that can grow. No more Sharif Millers who maybe have production and not much else. These are guys, as were drafted last year, like your Sean Bradleys and Davion Taylors, who have high athletic upside, not a lot else about them. And that's okay, because this team isn't going to compete year one. You want to see what you have in these guys. This draft class, more than any, is the most ridiculous in the world because it's COVID stricken. Players sat out, players had injuries, scouting intel was at a minimum. You couldn't have in-person meetings. You're relying so much on the opinion of the scouts and analytics now, where if you're, in a way, the Eagles and you're valuing those athletic traits, that's all you've got to go off. You may as well pick up on players that are falling down the draft, tumbling down the order, because other teams don't want to take risks on them. And I think that's what Howie Roseman's done. Did I like the fact that they took Dickerson? Not particularly. I would have much rather waited for Humphrey and then maybe traded back and potentially added a cornerback in the 3rd round. Do I understand why they took Dickerson? Absolutely. For myself, who's been over the last 2 years screaming they need to get a replacement for Jason Kelce. Then the Eagles offensive line in 2020 had Jamon Brown and me and John from Delaware and Steve, who works at your local gas station, playing an offensive line. They had to do something. The Eagles have been very, very good at developing talent along the O-line, and Jeff Stoutland is absolutely the reason for that. Halapoulivaati Vaitai isn't there anymore. Sayamalo is now your starter. Herbig hasn't shown much, and depth is at a minimum. I get the Dickerson pick. The Eagles have lived true to their old habits in drafting in the trenches, developing trench football, but in doing so, they've adapted a new mindset of looking for those freak athletic specimens for the coaching staff to show they can develop. That was where Doug Peterson's staff let him down. They couldn't. There's a lot of trust in Sirianni. I'm excited to see what he can do. But guys, what do you think of the draft? I'm going to have a grades video coming probably on Monday, if I'm honest with you, because I need to just relax tomorrow and I've got some plans. But we will be back. There'll be consistent uploads through every single day of the week coming. Make sure you stick around. From myself, Liam Jenkins, thank you for watching our live streams, for reading our coverage at phillysportsnetwork.com. I'll see you soon.